Good morning, boys and girls. Happy Monday. You guys have continued to amaze me with all of your hard work at writing. And we are going to get started today on our new writing unit. This is the third unit that we're going to begin, and it is going to be on storytelling. Okay, so you boys and girls, before we can write and illustrate stories, we have to be able to tell a story too. Okay, so during Writer's Workshop, when we get together and we do our mini lessons, I'm going to say, storytellers, and you guys are going to say yes. Ready? Let's practice. Storytellers. Good job. So today I'm going to read a book to you about a storyteller named Ralph. You'll see that Ralph doesn't always call himself a storyteller, but now, after he learned what a storyteller does, he does call himself a storyteller now. Okay, so we're going to read our story and we're going to learn about Ralph. So our story today is called Ralph Tells a Story. Oh, and look, you see a speech bubble. We talked about speech bubbles. Oh, and look what we see here. There's a lot of pieces of paper and it says name, and at the top he wrote Ralph. And then there's a spot for him to draw, and then there's a spot for him also to write. That kind of looks like our writing paper. Ralph tells a story. Oh, look. How do you think Ralph's feeling in our story? He looks like he's feeling pretty confident here, and he's working pretty hard. And then in this picture here, he's looking like maybe he's starting to get discouraged or frustrated. Oh, and look here. And here, look, he almost looks like he's starting to give up. I think some of our friends have looked like that during their writing time as well. My teacher always said, stories are everywhere. And the kids in my class were always finding them. So this page has also a lot of speech bubbles, and it shows what the kids are saying. It says, then my mom ran so fast that she caught up with the ice cream truck. This girl says, I ran down the hallway with underwear on my head. Oh my goodness. And then this boy here, he says, after that, I decided to hide my Halloween candy in my bed. And this boy here says, the dentist forgot to give me a toothbrush. And the teacher's saying, yeah, stories, stories. But every day at writing time, I could not write a story. Here's Ralph. And it says, I thought really hard. I started on my paper and I stared at the ceiling. Oh no. So he's having a hard time coming up with some stories. I have no story. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like maybe it was writing time and you couldn't come up with something to write about? I know I have. I can remember being in school feeling like this. And look, all the other boys and the girls in the classroom are working really hard on their stories. And there's a speech bubble over here, and the girl says, then Grandma gave me a cup of coffee and said, don't tell your mother. Oh my, that's funny. Poor Ralph can't come up with anything. So I looked for other things to do. I went to the water fountain. I roamed the hallways. I tried everything. So then we have some speech bubbles here. It's kind of hard for you guys to see. It says, can I go to the bathroom? And the teacher goes, again? So sometimes kids in class, they will say, I have to go to the bathroom when they really don't have to go to the bathroom. And here's Ralph again. He says, can I go help the lunch ladies? And his teacher goes, what? He just doesn't want to do writing time. Then one day, after getting sent back to my desk, I begged Daisy for help. I can't write a story because nothing happens to me. Are you kidding? She said. I've written a ton of stories about you. Oh, and the teacher's hanging up this sign and it says, stories happen to those who tell them. So Daisy was able to write stories about Ralph. Let's see if Daisy can help him. Daisy began pulling her stories out of her desk. Look at this one, she said. Remember the time you let me brush your hair? And this one? Remember the time you knocked down all my crayons? Oh, and remember the time you painted your nails with a black marker? I thought, I'll never be as good as a writer like Daisy. So here's Daisy sharing all of the stories that she's written. Right now, Ralph's still feeling pretty discouraged. That means that he's not feeling very good about writing because he thinks it's too hard. Then Daisy stapled all of her stories together. Click, click. Wow, she said. This book is already 13 pages. Click, click. Can I use a stapler? I asked. I was really good at stapling. But you have nothing to staple, said Daisy. You have to find a story first. And Daisy has a speech bubble and she says, just look around. So Ralph is interested in making a book. That's what they did, is they stapled all their stories together to make a book. But he doesn't have any stories yet to write about. So I looked for stories out the window, in the aquarium, and in my desk. Oh, and look, there's a speech bubble here, and it says, why do you have socks in your desk? And Ralph goes, He has dirty socks in his desk. And when my teacher wasn't looking, I looked for stories on the floor. Oh my. So Ralph hasn't found a story yet, but he is looking for a story. But still no stories. And then it says, here's Ralph, he's on the floor. And then here's Daisy, and she says, look, my next book. And it says The Sock Mystery. About how Ralph found a sock. And then the teacher's looking at this boy's story, and she says, that's my favorite part. Lying under my desk reminded me of laying in the grass at the park. I closed my eyes, and I imagined I was at the park. Just like the time a little inchworm crawled on my knee. The sun was shining right into my eyes. Squinting, I picked up the wiggly inchworm and I looked at it close up. So look, when Ralph was under his desk, it reminded him being at the park and finding an inchworm. And that's when my teacher found me. What's your story about? She asked. I opened my eyes. I saw an inchworm. Wonderful, she said. I can't wait to read what you wrote. But there was no inchworm story. He's still having a little bit of a hard time. I sat down and tried to write about the inchworm, but right away I got stuck. Do you know any inchworm stories? I asked Daisy. She just rolled her eyes and kept on working. Oh, look. So Ralph has an idea about an inchworm, but he doesn't have really a story to go along with it. And then my teacher said, Riders, come to the rug. Time to share. Oh, look, and Daisy's taking her story and she's going to the rug. And poor Ralph, he's still sitting there. Ralph, why don't you go first? Said the teacher. I pretended that I had lost my paper. Oh, so Ralph didn't have a story, so he pretended to lost his paper. And look, there's all the kids and they're raising their hands and they're saying, me, please. Oh, I want to turn. It didn't work. I walked to the front of the rug. It took a long time. I held my paper against my chest so no one could see that I didn't have any words on it. I was at the park, I said. An inchworm crawled on my knee. Oh, so look, is he reading off his paper? No, he's telling the story from his head so far. It was quiet in the classroom. So all the kids are listening. My heart went thump, 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 thump. So sometimes our heart starts to race and we can almost hear it when it's really quiet and when we're really, really nervous. So Ralph is feeling really nervous right now because he doesn't know what else he's going to say. That's when I looked at Daisy. And Daisy started to ask me questions. Did it feel squishy, Ralph? Did you take it home? Look, lots of speech bubbles. And then everyone in the class started to ask me questions. Did your mom let you keep it? Did it tickle? Did you name it? Wait a minute, I thought. Something did happen with that inchworm. Look, he started to have some ideas. It says, well, I picked up the inchworm and decided to name him Nick. I built Nick a house, but he just inched away. Then there's more to the story. So I followed him, which is why I didn't notice that someone was following me. And then when all of a sudden, this wobbly, crazy baby grabbed Nick and put him in his... Uh-oh. What do you think he's going to put him in? Diaper! Ah! I tried to be calm. Come on, baby, I said really nicely. Give Ralphie the inchworm. It didn't work. Was this the end of Nick? But then I noticed Nick was escaping. He crawled right up the baby's stomach. Quickly, I rescued Nick and ran. And then we spent the rest of the afternoon doing nothing together. The end. Oh, yay. So Ralph came up with a story about his inchworm, Nick. Everyone in the class clapped and cheered. Show the picture, Ralph, someone said. Oh, look, his class is so proud of him. I wasn't embarrassed anymore, so I did. And there's Ralph. He's doing share time with the class. That was last year. This year, I write stories all the time. I keep finding stories everywhere. Oh, and then on the last page, it says writing tips from Ralph. Number 1, get comfortable. Number 2, it's okay to ask for help. Number 3, you can always write about what you had for breakfast. And number 4, eat lots of chocolate. The end. I hope you guys liked that story. I thought it was really funny. I ended up loving his story he came up with for Inchworm. All right. So boys and girls, as storytellers, there'll be lots of times that we get stuck. We might not know what to write about. So we have to get our minds to a storytelling place. When I get stuck as a storyteller, I like to close my eyes and I like to think about something that I can tell about, okay? So let's close our eyes. And when you have your eyes closed, I want you to think about the first thing that pops up in your mind. Okay, so I have my eyes closed. Sometimes it takes a minute to get something to pop up in your mind. Oh, I'm going to tell about a story about a time I went to Dairy Queen and got a vanilla milkshake. Okay, so after you have a thought in your head, I want you to get out a piece of writing paper and I want you to go ahead and you're going to write your story and draw us a picture to go along with your story, okay? So for my story, I might draw a picture of me carrying my milkshake and maybe I'm drinking my milkshake. And I might write down at the bottom, I went to Dairy Queen to get a milkshake. All right, so go ahead and get out your paper and you guys go ahead and get started. And if you'd like, you can snap a picture and send it to your teacher. Thanks, boys and girls, for listening to my story. I'll see you tomorrow.